Great White North Report. I'm your host, as always, Roman LV. Anyway, last Monday was the fourth election televised debate. Well, the third one was canceled, but this was the fourth debate on the agenda. It was nationally televised. 6 leaders on stage today. You had the Liberal leader, Justin Trudeau, Conservative Party under Andrew Scheer, the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, Bloc Québécois was Yves-François Blanchet, who I really don't know. You had the Green Party under Elizabeth May, and then the People's Party with Maxime Bernier. So basically you had 6 clowns on the stage, which was 3 too many. Too many cooks piss in the soup. So basically you had 3 parties that actually matter and 3 that actually don't. Now the idea of these debates was to have affordability and economic insecurity, national and global leadership, indigenous issues, polarization, human rights and immigration, and the environment and energy. Now I tried watching this and I could only watch for like 5 minutes at a time before I got so bored. I'd shut it off, I'd come back 10, 15 minutes later, see what's going on. It's hard to watch people you really don't care about debate something, but it is important to go through this. So let's try and unpack some of this stuff and how well the leaders did. So I'll start with Trudeau because he's our leader. Yay. He was mainly on the defensive all night, as all the other leaders went after his record on everything from climate change to the pipeline to Indigenous affairs. He kept to his script and tried to say that his government did all these things. The only thing I can think that Trudeau did that affected me was the carbon tax. Now I pay 4 cents per liter on gas just for this tax, and it's going to go up to 11 cents in the next few years. So how does that make me feel? Does not make me feel happy. But for his part, he didn't exactly get flustered. He didn't take the bait and all the mud that was thrown at him on this debate, especially by Scheer. Now, Trudeau did seek a confrontation with Andrew Scheer over Scheer's personal views on abortion and
millions of Canadians. I am personally pro-life. And it is okay in this country to have a difference of opinion.
That's his personal opinion. It's not the party position. Can't believe we're still debating abortion after 40 years of it. Either pro-choice or pro-life. It's your choice. I am pro-choice. My wife is pro-life. When she got pregnant, we're happy. There's no problems. And we'll get a little more into that later. Now, Trudeau did take a stance on Bill 21, which is a recently passed and popular law in Quebec. It's a Quebec law that bans public workers in positions of authority from wearing religious dress, such as turbans and hijabs. I'm all for that, because that means that's just not against Muslims and Sikhs. That's also, and other religious minorities, that's also against Catholics. That means you can't wear a crucifix. Or if you have a crucifix tattoo, you have to cover it up. It's for everybody. Although it does seem more unfair to people who wear the hijab or the turban or burqa. So Trudeau was saying he would say that the federal government might have to intervene on that. So Trudeau was picking a fight with the Quebec provincial government. And that will cost him in Quebec in the long run, because that is a very popular law, and Quebecers are very picky when it comes to their provincial rights. But it also probably picked up points in other parts of Canada, mainly Toronto, Vancouver. People from there can identify with that. Trudeau didn't have a lot going for him. Now, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, until this year, I never even heard of the guy, so it's kind of hard to judge him. That's the problem with politicians. They only come out of the woodwork every election. Now, he positioned himself as the best alternative to Trudeau and painted the Liberal government as out of touch with the concerns of everyday Canadians. And for the most part, I agree. He accused Trudeau.
Because the fact of the matter is, he's always wearing a mask. He puts on a reconciliation mask and then fires the Attorney General, the first one of Indigenous background. He puts on a feminist mask and then fires 2 strong female MPs for not going along with his corruption. He puts on a middle-class mask and then raises taxes on middle-class Canadians. Mr. Trudeau, you are a phony and you are a fraud and you do not deserve to govern this country.
And it's true. Trudeau is a politician. Trudeau is politically correct. And I think we've taken political correctness to the extreme in this country instead of having a sense of common sense. So I thought Scheer did pretty good in the debates. Now, I missed it, but I guess Trudeau mentioned Ontario Premier Doug Ford. I do remember that when it came to the climate change issue, that Trudeau said that a lot of Conservative premiers have been blocking all the environmental initiatives. But I guess he pointed out Doug Ford of Ontario a lot. Scheer called him out on that, saying that, Mr. Trudeau, you seem oddly obsessed with provincial politics. There is a vacancy for the Ontario Liberal leadership. If you're focused on provincial politics, go and run for the leadership of that party, Scheer had said. He's consistently pulled behind Trudeau as the preferred prime minister, and it'll be a close race, I think. Their biggest fight's over the SNC-Lavalin affair. which also went into Indigenous affairs.
Stephen Harper, who did not respect Indigenous rights, did not respect Indigenous peoples. And Mr. Scheer, you're putting forward exactly the same plan that didn't just fail Indigenous peoples, didn't just fail Indigenous communities and their kids, but they also failed to get important energy projects built. We need to keep moving forward in a way that respects Indigenous peoples, respects that there's going to be a range of views, but is grounded in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that you have consistently blocked through your party's actions. That is not respect for Indigenous peoples.
I have nothing to learn from Mr. Trudeau, who fired the first Indigenous Attorney General for doing her job. She said that she would do politics differently, and you fired her when she did. And you want to talk about getting pipelines built? You've canceled 2 pipelines, and the one you bought, you can't build. You've let tens of thousands of people in Alberta and Saskatchewan down, and you have failed to recognize that Indigenous communities are hurt by this as well.
So Scheer really went after Trudeau, which is right, because Scheer doesn't consider the other 4 parties as a threat. The Green Party under Elizabeth May, she knows that she's not going to form a party, a government. No one in their right state of mind would put the Greens in power, because then your taxes are going to skyrocket. So her goal tonight was basically to put her party as the best suited to holding the governing party accountable, particularly when it comes to climate change. At best, she could hope to gain a few seats, and it would be the few seats that someone like the Liberals or Conservatives would need to form a coalition government to get themselves over that from a minority to a majority. That's the best she could hope for. And she was clear and in control. She was pretty funny. She's charming. She discussed healthcare, but she doesn't really have a lot of, other than climate and environmental, she doesn't really have a lot to say. I was confused that she's in favor of immigration. But when you think about it, the Liberal immigration policy has been to bring in 300,000 people per year. And when you bring in 300,000 people a year to a country, then that's going to affect the environment and the ecosystem severely. Because where are you going to put these 300,000 people? You can't cram them into one city. They're going to spread out. They're going to displace people that are already living in these areas, who then move out into another area, and then those people move out. It's a domino effect. Eventually, people are going to move into the countryside, and they're going to start building new subdivisions. And where are they building these subdivisions? In existing farmland. So they're going to tear up the farmland, because once you take off that top layer, that topsoil, it's fucked. There's no going back. You don't destroy houses and plant farms there anymore. Or they're chopping down little forested areas, bulldozing that to make room. You can see it. I got 500 new homes being built behind me from all pre-existing farmland. So already you're decreasing the amount of food that we can produce with the decreasing amount of arable farmland. And then you're creating more pollution, especially like litter pollution, sewage waste that needs to be treated. More hydro, more cars are going to be on the road, because these 300,000 people, at least a third of them are going to want to drive a car, especially with the lack of public transportation that we have in the rural areas. So they're all going to want to have cars to get around and go places. So there goes the emissions. Now, if we want to build housing, we need to build more apartment units. We need to go up, not out. Everybody, like myself, I'm the same. Everyone wants the big house with a big yard away from the inner cities. So I was really confused with her stance on immigration, considering how much damage that does to an ecosystem when you think about it. I thought her best moment was when they were talking about the abortion thing, and being the only woman on stage, the men were arguing back and forth and leaving her out of it. No one asked her pointedly what she thought, considering that she's a woman.
It's been really interesting for most of this campaign to hear a lot of men arguing about what a woman's rights should be, but having all of you, except for Max, participated in the TVA debate where you were perfectly happy to keep women off the stage. I'm the only woman leader of a party. You participated in a debate which did not let our little girls see that there's a chance for a woman in this country to be prime minister, to run as the leader of a party. We must be clear as all leaders, and you are not clear, Andrew, that we will never allow a single inch of retreat from the hard-earned rights of women in this country, not 1 inch.
Now, she did take offense to Scheer's proposal to cut foreign aid by a quarter.
In Canada's foreign aid budget by 25%. So we're going to stop sending money to the relatively well-off countries. We're going to bring that money back home so that Canadians can get ahead.
Mr. Scheer, that may be the worst idea in your whole non-platform, is the cutting of foreign aid. I wear this little pin. This is the
I believe it's time
Sustainable
for
Development
Canadians to get
Goals
a
of the
break.
United Nations, to which this country is committed. Ending poverty within the next decade, within Canada and globally, is actually possible, but not if we ever had the misfortune of having your
I believe they should take that
short-term,
money and bring it back
misguided,
home so that Canadians
greedy
can
and
get
selfish
ahead.
policies.
It's not greedy
Okay.
to put money in the pockets of Canadians. Mr.
Now, the other parties didn't seem to say much about it, but I completely agree with cutting foreign aid completely, or retooling it. And maybe I'll look into that later. But we send foreign aid to so many different countries. We send a couple of $1 million there, a couple of $1 million, $10 million there, to different countries. I think there's like 50 countries we give to, including China of all places. We gave like $9 million to China last year, and they're the second largest economy in the world, and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Why did we give China that kind of money? Like, I know it's a drop in the bucket to the Chinese, but hey, for all I know, I'd help them put more surveillance cameras in Xinjiang province. So I'm all for cutting foreign aid. Elizabeth May, she's out of touch. Who do you think pays for this foreign aid? We do. She seems to think that foreign aid is used for climate initiatives and to help the poor. Like, no, not really. Most of this money goes into the pockets of government officials to enrich themselves in these countries. I'm all for cutting foreign aid, reducing it, like completely cut it off, reduce the amount, and then turn around and say, okay, we're not going to help every country. We're going to pick one country, and we're going to help them for a few years. So we're going to give them this much money. It won't be as much as the whole foreign aid that we used to give. We'll give them some money on the condition that we're the ones, we send a team into the country, we see where it needs to go, and we hand out the money. We control the checkbook. Now, most countries won't give you that kind of power, but hey, if they want our money, we'll do that. That way we can help one country, help fix one country at a time, because there's a lot of shithole countries out there. She was really proud of the fact that she is with her UN pin. I think the UN is one of the worst organizations in the world. It's most corrupt too. And the fact that we're trying to we have to lobby, pay money, taxpayer money to get a seat on the Security Council is ridiculous. And she attacked the Conservatives for not having released a full platform. The problem with the Green Party is that they get in any kind of control, they'll raise taxes. Now the NDP, they also know they don't have a hope in hell, but they're trying. Singh, he looked the most professional guy out there. He was relaxed, joked around a lot, mixed it up with Scheer because he's trying to be that second guy. Though there's a couple of times where the host mixed him up with Scheer. I don't know, Scheer Singh, I guess the names sound kind of familiar, but Mr. Singh's got that bright orange turban, which he wore on purpose, according to himself. So he got a couple of big laughs. So he had a good night, but again, if the NDP ever get elected on their socialist platforms, taxes will skyrocket. He was articulate. He did what he had to do. And he had some of the best lines.
What we have here is Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Scheer arguing about who's worse for Canada. Really, we got to start arguing. We got to start presenting who's going to be best.
Now, for the People's Party, Maxime Bernier, who only formed a party because he didn't get the nomination for the Conservatives.
Radical.
Your
Only
role
6%.
on this stage tonight
Only
seems to be to say publicly what Mr. Scheer thinks privately.
No. Only 6% of Canadians want more immigration. Only 6%. So when you don't want to have a debate about that, you're not in line with the population. Let's just have an honest debate on that subject.
Okay.
Mr. Singh.
Now, he's been called nationalistic and xenophobic. Well, hey, I'm Canadian. I'm very nationalistic. Now, he made comments about immigration to Canada.
We are a diverse country and we are proud of that. What I'm saying, because it's in line with the immigration, I'm saying that we must have fewer immigrants in this country to be sure for these people to participate in our society.
Now, again, when you bring in 300,000 people, it depends where you're bringing them from. If you're bringing in people who do not want to adjust, who are just coming into Canada for the free benefits, the free healthcare, the free welfare, and don't really care what Canada is, they just want to get out of the shithole country they're from, but they bring the same values that they had when they were in their home countries they bring in here. And especially with the refugee crisis that's happening. All you have to do is look at what's going on in Europe. Ask Sweden what's going on in Malberg, in the smaller communities. Ask Austria what's happening in Vienna. Ask Germany what's happening there. Ask the UK what's going on around Manchester. Go to Toronto and see some areas, what's happened there. When you mix certain elements of immigration.
Socialist policy. It will hurt everybody.
It's not going to help anybody.
Hurt everybody. It's not the
What you're
way
gonna
to
do is not gonna help anybody.
build wealth and growth in this country. You must believe in people.
Bernier,
You must give back their
You're
money
not
in their
someone
own
abusing
pockets.
people. What you're saying is not helpful.
How many seconds would
Now, you can't paint everyone with the same brush, but you can look at what countries, what they're like, and what you're bringing from there.
Are
You always want to celebrate our
values that
diversity.
people around the world
We must
ascribe to?
celebrate our history. We must celebrate who we are. And I'm proud Canadian like you. And you know, we built this country together, and we want this country to be like that in 25 years. 6% of Canadians want more immigration, only 6%. So when you don't want to have a debate about that, you're not in line with the population. Let's just have an honest debate on that subject.
Okay.
So Bernier's got some points there, but you have to do it with common sense. Going to the far right, you got Bloc Québécois leader François Blanchet. Now, his slogan was always Quebec, it is us. And he's basically focusing on protecting Quebec's sovereignty.
Yeah, we were worried they wouldn't pay
immigration is
attention.
not that much a matter of number. It's a matter of resources. We invest in it in order to have those persons welcome, as well in Canada as they are in Quebec, with our desire for them to share our language, to share some of our values. And if we do have enough resources invested in that, this is workable.
And even so, he had a clear mission, convince the Quebecers to elect his party over the Liberals. So he really didn't have a lot to say other than what affected Quebec. This is basically the high point of the 6 leaders. Anyway, until next time, this is Roman Daisel. I'm out of here.